ये कहाँ पहुंचा दी मेरे को रामबड़ी में। रुक जाओ।
हो गया चालू।
कड़कड़ टूमा। बे भाई सब पागल है क्या कुरान?
क्या है?
Hello and welcome to this, the very first episode of Night City Wire, a
भाई
brand new
पीछे जो
series
गाना
from
चल
us
रहा
at
ना।
CD Projekt Red, where we'll be talking about all things Cyberpunk 2077. For today's episode, we'll be starting with a brand new trailer. One of our developers will be joining us to help unpack everything you're going to see. We'll have some news, an announcement about a secret collaboration. We'll be taking a look at some braindance gameplay and welcoming back our developers just to have a chat about everything you're going to see. But there is one more thing. Media all over the world have been getting hands-on with Cyberpunk 2077, and when this episode finishes, you'll be able to go and check out exactly what they thought.
हाँ
So,
डाल दूंगा।
उसे पार्कोर हेलो भाई हेलो हेलो।
it is
चलो भाई
time to take a
साइबरपंक का
look at our
देखेंगे।
brand
डाल
new
दूं?
trailer, and after that, our lead quest designer Pavel Sasko will be joining us because I've got a feeling you're going to have a few questions after watching this. So, let's take a look.
I love this town. The city of endless opportunity. Ready to get your cherry popped? Yeah, come on.
City like any other, just bigger.
Nah, mano. Not just any other city. Legends are born here.
The major leagues. We're only here because Dex is pulling the strings. Doubt that puts us in the same league as them.
But we are. They just don't know it yet. But if you got the cojones and you know how to use them, you can do damn.
So what's the gig, Dex? One piece? How about we go over the plan?
Near anything.
Unless you catch it both.
Even then, you go out with a bang, right?
You know, you can make heaps more eddies as a motivational speaker.
Yo, Mr. V, a pleasure.
So what's the gig, Dex? You meant to come out in one piece? How about we go over the plan?
There's this prototype tech, a biochip to be precise. Job's to grab it.
Guessing it belongs to...
Don't you worry, my boy.
What the fuck just happened in there?
Can't stop digging Night City.
Fucking major leagues. Happy now, Jackie?
Yep, I'm fucking high! Time to bail!
Oh my god, we're so fucked.
Dix, what the fuck?
Can't risk it, V.
And you, who are you? Fuck.
November 19th.
So the trailer contains footage from the game's prologue only, but there was an awful lot in it. So Pavel, why don't you try and help us unpack everything that we just saw?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely, I can try. So what you have just seen is only the prologue of the game. So that awesome stuff is only happening in the first few quests. What the trailer shows you is really our stage, the Night City. You know, this gigantic city built of 6 completely unique districts, surrounded by the 7th one that we call the Badlands. As a player, you are meeting Jackie. Jackie's your friend. Now, they together are trying to reach out for something that is very precious. They are trying to reach out for this chip of immortality, this gateway to eternal life. Jackie introduces you to Fixer Dexter Deshawn. He's a very important person in a social ladder of Cyberpunk. He is able to provide the player with various jobs and contracts to be able to gather money, to be able to modify their bodies, push themselves to the limits, to put their hands on the chip. But as you can expect, not everything goes as planned, and but to see it, you will have to play the game.
There are an awful lot of really cool things in this trailer, and there's a few that I would just love to talk about a little bit more for the people at home. So let's start with talking about a gang called the Mox. Now, we see a few flashes of them in this trailer. I personally think they're really cool and one of my favorites, but can you give us a little bit more information about them?
Oh yes, so the Mox is one of the gangs that player is going to interact with throughout the game. The Mox is the gang that has been formed in 2076 after death of Elizabeth Borden. She was called Lizzie. Now, she was an owner of a brothel and former sex worker, and she was protecting working guys and girls from harassment, from abuse, and the gang is really continuing her mission. And as a player, you are going to interact with that gang, meet multiple different entities, and craft your own relationship with them, and understand what they are all about.
So earlier on, you did mention a 7th district, a place called the Badlands. Now, we saw a few shots of this in the trailer, but I'd love for you to give us a bit more detail about the district outside of the city walls.
Okay, so the Badlands is this like dead, dried out space going around the whole Night City. And as a player, you'll be able to traverse that space in your car or motorcycle. This is a space that is inhabited by the nomads. Nomads are living in different families, and they are traveling across that space in convoys made out of the cars and motorcycles. And as a player, you'll be able to traverse and access different type of...
रुक 1080 कर दिया यहाँ से और स्ट्रीम 30 है वो भाई नाइट्रो यूजर्स के लिए है लिंक दे दूं लिंक देख ले
Okay, so that big dude that was
हैं लिंक ले लेना साले ज्यादा सही चलेगी वरांग तेरे को भी दे दी तेरे पे तो है ही
बात तो है
इसको डीएम कर दिया
Cyborg. He was always a loyalist of Arasaka, and time has changed, and in 2077 he had to find his own space in Night City, but to find out you'll have to play the game.
In this trailer, we do see some flashes of a Ripper doc called Victor Vector. I think if people have watched our previous gameplays, they might remember him. But I'd really like for you to give the people at home some more information about what Ripper docs are and how they'll be interacting with them when they play Cyberpunk.
So Ripper docs in our game, they are surgeons. They are like a specific type of a job in the social ladder of Cyberpunk. They are accustomed and specialized in replacing limbs to the metal ones. They can basically update your body, enhance your body, change you into this walking war machine. And as a player, you are going to meet different...
मंगड़ तेरे माइक से रिपीट आ रही है
I mute कर दी
Some of them are like important characters for a story. Through that, you will invest eddies that you're gathering.
हेलो भाई
to
अंकित हेलो हेलो
turn
थोड़ी सी दिक्कत
your
हो रही थी लेकिन
body
अब ठीक
into
चलनी
this
चाहिए
tool
अब बिल्कुल ठीक चल
that allows you to survive on the streets of Night City.
हेलो भाई
Pavel, thank
स्ट्रीम
you
को
so
लाइक
much
कर
for
दो
joining
शेयर
us.
कर
I
दो
know you'll be back later in the episode because you're going to be helping us to analyze the Braindance gameplay. But before that, we do have some news to share. Earlier in the year, we announced that if you pick up Cyberpunk 2077 on Xbox One, you'll be able to play it on Xbox Series X when the console launches. And just in case you missed it, it will be the same for PlayStation players as well. If you pick up Cyberpunk 2077 on PlayStation 4, you'll also be able to play it on PlayStation 5 when the console launches. And that's not all. There will be a free upgrade for Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, but we'll have more details on that soon.
Tonight City.
Before we reveal our first look at the
Cyberpunk के
Braindance
launches हो रहे हैं
gameplay and welcome back our developers for a chat, there is just one more thing we want to announce. Something that we've been working on in secret for a while. We are very excited to announce our partnership with Studio Trigger and Netflix to bring you Cyberpunk Edgerunners, a standalone anime set in the Cyberpunk universe, which we've been working on for some time now. Edgerunners is due to launch in 2022, but for some more information, let's go to the team in Tokyo.
Hi, my name is Saya Elder. I am the Japan-based producer for Cyberpunk Edgerunners. What I do basically on this project is that I am a fixer, to put it in the words of the Cyberpunk universe. We are a game company. We are a bunch of nerds, and wherever there are nerds, there's going to be anime fans. So it was always a dream for us to make anime. When we began this project, we were certain that we didn't want to make a recreation of the game. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a standalone story set in the same universe. The stage is still Night City, but everything else is totally new. New characters, new story. I do like to think that it's going to be a great gateway for newcomers to come and check Cyberpunk game and also the Cyberpunk genre as a whole. Right now we're in Nakano, which is one of the biggest anime meccas of the world. I'm going to take you to Studio Trigger right now because we have the wonderful opportunity to talk to the dream team that will be bringing you this anime.
こんにちは。トリガーの代表取締役の大塚です。
監督の今石です。
キャラクターデザインを担当する吉成です。
ゲームのサイバーパンクのファンの方、今回初めて触れる方両方に満足していただけるようにアニメを作るつもりです。よろしくお願いします。
今回はそのサイバーパンクという僕らが10代の一ファンにしか過ぎなかった頃に生まれたジャンル、そういうジャンルのものをまた、時代が何周もして作れるというのが非常に楽しみです。
トリガーも10年ということで、監督に今石、キャラクターデザインに吉成というトリガーの最強の布陣で、トリガー10周年にふさわしい作品にしていきたいと思います。お楽しみに。
Now it is time to show you some gameplay of Braindance. This is a feature that you'll experience when you play Cyberpunk 2077. Braindance is essentially
क्या ओरिजिनल भाई अनुभव क्या कहना चाह रहा है कौन सा ओरिजिनल?
It allows you to relive their sense of sight, smell, touch, and even hearing, all thanks to a special device. After the gameplay, I will be welcoming back Pavel Sasko. I will also be joined by Patrick Mills, our senior quest designer and all-round lore master, who will be helping to answer your questions and give you some explanation on how you'll be interacting with Braindance when you play Cyberpunk 2077. So, let's take a look.
Plan simple. Do nothing odd. Don't get creative. You go in, snatch the cash, get out. And we sell the BD to those psycho freaks from the studio.
Got it.
And remember, everything on full blast. They'll spot us extra for a wicked adrenaline high.
Okay, on you go.
Down! Everybody! On the ground! I want to see you kissing the flooring! Money! Now! Or I will fucking drop you! I swear to God! Well, yeah, hey... now! Before I blow your fucking head off!
Slow, deep breaths. Your cortisol and adrenaline spiked, but the soft activated your hormone blockers. Nothing happened. You're alive and well.
That was too much. Could feel the guy's pain, his stress, his hope. Hope wrapped up in something else.
Mm-hmm. Probably took a booster just before. You'll be fine. Got everything set up? Let's switch over to editing mode. I'll sever the link to the BD Roller's sensory array. You'll be able to look around freely. Whole scene's yours. Full cam control in analysis mode, so move around, zoom in and out, whatever else you come up with.
Chup.
So analysis mode, you control playback, and even pause when you feel the need. Then you use the editor console to unpause. Try it.
Plan simple. Do nothing odd. Don't get creative. You go in, snatch the cash, get out, and we sell the BD to those psycho freaks from the studio.
Got it.
Dream as hell, right? Well, that's not all. You can speed things up or rewind, whatever you like. Give it a try. Rewind, roll it back to the top. All good, neat. Now try fast forwarding a bit.
Plan simple. Do nothing odd. Don't get creative. You go in, snatch the cash, get out.
Okay. You can also reset the recording. That'll take you right back to the beginning. Try it. Now for some fun. This here's why you came in the first place. In analysis mode, you get to view and even scan details of the enviro recorded by the BD Roller. Focus on the heat, the gun this gonk gets from his buddy at the beginning. Now scan it.
Plan simple. Do nothing odd. Don't get creative. You go in, snatch the cash, get out, and we sell the BD to those psycho freaks from the studio. And remember,
Okay, right here. Excellent. Let's move on. Now heads up. In analysis mode, you can ferret out background noise and conversations if the roller got close enough. This tech records everything, every little detail, even the sights and sounds the roller was never aware of. To see the sources of the recorded sensory signals, switch to the audio layer in the editor. Go ahead and try that now. Okay, good. Now you should see several sound signatures in the store. Choose one and hone in on it.
Pack of 6, case of Brosif, and a couple of zappers.
Okay, we have a deal to
इतनी बढ़िया डिटेल भाई.
Everybody!
So, any
बहुत ज़्यादा ओपी है.
Unbelievable.
छोटी डिटेल भी पकड़ रखी है.
What's happening right next to me?
Yeah, it's how BD recording implants work. They pick up everything, all the elements in the background. Then an editor tweaks them, makes them pop. Keep playing with the sound, explore it a bit. We'll move on when you get bored.
What I see you kissing the flooring! Money!
Sometimes you can analyze extra layers in the raw, stuff the roller's cyberware picked up.
Like what?
Ev's got Karoshi optics that grab infrared, meaning you should be able to grab heat signatures from her recording.
Huh. Hella nice.
Scanning works on peeps, too. Walk up to the wounded chick. Try scanning her. Alright, next thing. Scroll forward to the part where our artist gets a lead injection.
Or I will fucking drop you, I swear to God! Well, now, fucking head off!
See that? They shot him and he never saw it coming. But you will. Here it comes. My favorite part of the game. See the blinking thing over the entrance? Surveillance cam. Must have caught our shooter. You'll see in a sec. Cam feeds to the screen behind the clerk. Roll back to where the screen's in the kid's field of vision, then scan it. His own
ये तो बहुत बढ़िया है.
probably planned to all along. Must have got a nice slice of cred on the black market for a BD like this. BD freaks are ready to pay a preem for a real flatline. Anyway, if you've seen enough, you can exit.
Yeah, it's impressive, right? It's too bad most of the BDs we do here are only good for flogging the log.
So Braindance is a pretty big part of the Cyberpunk universe. It's not just something used for adult films. There is an awful lot to it. And there's two sides I'd really like you guys to help me explore. First is the lore, so how this actually fits into the universe, and then there's the gameplay side, so how players will be interacting with it. So Patrick, could you tell us more about the lore of Braindance?
I would love to. So in the world of Cyberpunk 2077, Braindance was invented way back in the early 2000s at UC Santa Cruz. It was developed as a way of recording a person's experiences and then playing them back for someone else so that they could relive them as though it was happening to them. It was originally used for things like therapy and prisoner rehabilitation, but by 2077 it's become this global media industry, including things like movies, mass entertainment, things like that, video games, some interactive things, and of course adult fare as well. Now, in our game, we deal a lot with black brain dances, or XBDs as we call them, and there are different types of those, but the one that you saw in the trailer just there was a flatliner. Now that's where the person recording it actually dies during the recording. And it's popular with sort of an illicit kind of a thrill, but a mercenary can also use them for various things, and you'll see that in the game, of course.
And from the gameplay perspective, we have been working a lot throughout last years trying to figure out the best way how to use the braindance in the game as a mechanics. So what we have settled on is this braindance editor mode. As a player, you will be able to run the braindance in the editor mode and see different clues that have been registered on the peripheral of given actor. Now, as a player, you can slide on the timeline of the recording back and forth, trying to uncover different clues. And that clues are actually telling a story in the game. So as a player, you will run different investigations that will lead you to different mysteries, and you will uncover them actually using that braindance as a mechanics in the game.
So as Pavel was saying, we use Braindance as a storytelling tool. It's not a collectible. It's not something where you're going to go in and you're going to play it and you're going to be like, I've seen this before. What we use Braindance for is to give you a keyhole into the life of the residents of Night City. And we can explore things like childhood trauma, religion, various philosophical ideas in a way that you might not otherwise experience in a story about a mercenary on the tough streets.
So we've tried to talk about some of the aspects that we think the community will find really exciting, but you know, while you're both here, I'd love to know, what is it about Cyberpunk that you guys are really excited for? Patrick, why don't you start?
So one of the things that I'm most excited about in this game is the characters and the way they interact with the world. We've got this really interesting world that stretches all the way back to the Cyberpunk 2020 source material and all of these events and all of those things, but those don't mean anything unless they connect with characters. And so when we come up with a character, we start with their function. What is this person? What do they do in the story? But we don't stop there. We go back and we figure out, what was their childhood like? What was their upbringing like? What kind of obstacles did they face in this harsh reality, and did they overcome them? And how did they overcome them, or did they not overcome them, and why? And you can see all of those things in their environment, in their dialogues, in sort of how they operate in the world. And we come up with that for all of our characters. Now, you look at someone like Victor Vector, and you're going to see stories about his past in his environment and in his dialogue. You know, we come up with that stuff even if we don't use it in the game, because it helps inform us as to who these characters are.
And for me, I would not be myself if I would not say that I'm the most excited about our quests. Like with our Witcher 3 team, with Patrick and like everybody that has stayed with us since the Witcher 3 time, we really have grown so much. We have learned so much, and we have used all that experience to put them into the quest that we have made. And you will not find really a filler in this game. Like everything has a meaning. Like we put so much effort into making sure that everything is rewarding, is interesting, is talking about characters, as Patrick said, is talking about worlds, is talking about emotions, like touching the player in a really, like a real way. And I just can't wait to find out what you think.
Pavel, I know you mentioned story and quests and writing quests, and When I was last in the studio, I had a look and I saw a notebook on your desk, and I would love for you to show everybody this notebook.
Okay, Holly, I mean, you asked for it. So this is my notebook. It says Salsa Quest Designer. The reason is because I dance salsa, and I'm a quest designer, so you know. So I started this notebook actually when we were really starting Cyberpunk. At the very beginning, I wrote like a first note, and it says pretty much something along the lines of that we're starting with a prototype. And then, you know, I kept on basically noting things that we've been working on for like next years. I remember once when our concept artists actually approached me and they said that they want to take a look on my notebook. And I was like, what for actually? And they took some pictures and they told me, yeah, well, you know, because we are looking for a reference material for notes of a psychopathic killer. So yeah, well, you may find maybe some of my notes in the game.
Pavel and Patrick, thank you so much for joining me.
कितना
I'm pretty
लिखता है बे?
happy because I have read some of the
इतना तो कभी
stories that
स्कूल
you
में
and
नहीं
the
लिखा।
team have written for Braindance, and I'm pretty excited for people to discover them. But before we do finish today's episode, there is just one more thing we'd like to talk about. Earlier in this episode, I mentioned that media have been getting hands-on with the opening of Cyberpunk 2077, and they should be posting their impressions right about now. And if you missed anything from today's episode, don't worry, we'll be uploading everything to our channels very soon. And
भाई एक बंदा कह रहा मैंने गेम खेली.
I have a lot of questions. Hopefully, and when Philip joins me, we can talk about those. Philip is the senior quest designer for Cyberpunk, and so we're gonna get crazy with it. We have a bunch of
IGN
things
को
we want to
देखते
talk
हैं
about.
IGN.
As you can see, we have, I mean, Twitch polls, Twitch chat. If you're over there, I see you right now spamming away. But if you have questions or thoughts, by all means, I would love to hear what you think. And I will try my hardest to answer the questions that I can. Yeah, so right away, what you saw there, the just really quickly rundown of what's going on. At the top, we have the trailer, and in the trailer, you got to see some more of the different quests and things that you would go on. All of it's from the intro, y'all. Everything that you saw in that trailer was from at least what I played the first 4 hours of the game. I was like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. So you have questions about that? I got answers for you. We learned about the Moxies and how they run, like I don't want to say seedy underbelly, because it's definitely not. They definitely have some sort of control over the city, but they're all former and or current sex workers who are like running a bar that you have to go to at some point in the intro.
Outside of the game.
क्या कह रहा है?
Then they drop this bomb.
And then we learned some more about
आएगा थोड़ी देर में आएगा किसी आएगा बहुत सारी जगह पे आने वाला है इसका गेम प्ले भी.
I will say, one of the coolest parts of they didn't really see right there. There's the Moxie.
वही देख रहा हूँ मैं एक मिनट
bar that you
रुकना.
can go to, and you can sort of see the way the city looks. It's
मैं अपना अकाउंट तो लॉग इन कर लूँ.
Shut up.
We're only here because Dex is pulling the strings. Doubt that puts us in the same league as them.
But we are. They just don't know it yet. But if you got the cojones and you know how to use them, you can do damn near anything.
Unless you catch a bullet.
Even then, you go out with a bang, right?
You know, you can make heaps more eddies as a motivational speaker.
Yo, Mr. V. A pleasure.
ट्विटर वाले साला डेट ऑफ बर्थ वाली बकचोदी मांगे यार है बताओ.
How about we go over the plan?
कह रहा ड्राइवर लाइसेंस अपलोड कर अपना. तभी कह रही.
To be precise, job to grab.
वो तो कर दिया मैंने.
We're robbing some heavy hitters.
Thought you could blackmail me, fucker.
तो डेट ऑफ बर्थ चाहिए थी. पापा का डीएल लेके दे दिया मैंने. YouTube.
Do this on the hush. Ideally, no bodies, not a one.
भाई कितने भाई बहुत बंदे लाइव कर रहे हैं तो गेम स्पॉट.
Is it gonna be dangerous?
Don't you worry, mi amor. We're bulletproof.
वही देख रहा हूँ.
What the fuck just happened in there?
Can't stop digging Night City.
Fucking majors. Happy now, Jackie?
Yeah, that's fucking high.
एम्बार्गो हटते ही कर देना चाहिए. Geoff's hands-on impressions.
What the fuck?
Game risky, V.
And you, who are you? Fuck.
It's gonna be amazing. So based on what I have played already of the game, just to give you a really quick example. I don't know if we can go to like a specific point in that trailer, but there's one point where there's like a dude and it looks like you're on a basketball court and your character kind of pushes him. That is one of the many examples of how you interact with people in the city. So in that scenario, you play as a corpo, right? And so you are trying to land at the Moxie's bar, and you can't land on the street. So your hovercraft lands on a basketball court kind of above the bar, and you...
अरे अभी अपना ये शेयर करेगा.
Or the club. And so you land in the middle of a basketball game, and these guys come up to you like, what are you doing? And you have the option to engage with them or not. And depending on how you handle it, things happen, right? You could, be the corporate guy and not at all. Be like, I don't even deal with these people. Or you could just get in a fight. Like, there's so many amazing ways to handle stuff. It's actually really neat. Going back to the brain dance, right? The way the brain dance is set up in the game, it isn't just like, you walk in a room and a thing happens. There's a whole storyline that leads into it, and the entire time it feels like I don't even know. I don't want to say it feels like you're in the Matrix, because that's not at all what it's. But it has that vibe. Like, it is so neat to go through the process of getting into the club, meeting your contact, and you do like this kind of flirtatious dance thing, and then she invites you downstairs, and you're like, I don't know what is about to happen right now. And you go down, and she leads you to go meet the character you saw during the brain dance segment, and it starts you on this journey of like figuring out what a brain dance is. And as you can see, this is just one part of the game. It's one part of the game where you can kind of go into people's memories and experience what they experienced and rewind, highlight certain parts. I imagine you'll be using it to uncover the mystery of this world, one that hopefully will lead us more to Johnny Silverhand and everything that he brings to it, and probably the mysterious MacGuffin, right? That stick that contains immortality, whatever that may be.
I picked the corpo path.
So I'm really excited to see
सुन ले यार.
how that that's that's
ये देख एक बंदे ने भी लिखा है, just show us the
Are there
entire
any
game.
other amazing comments? If you are in need of us to discuss anything, if you have any questions when we continue on, let me know. I will definitely say right now that I think it's safe to say that I and several other people you may know and love are in Cyberpunk. I can say that, right? It's 9:32. I can say that, right? We're in the game. And not just our
truly an open world, and you can walk around the town. You can go and carjack a car. You can drive from location to location. I mean, it is very GTA-like, and the world blew me away with the level of detail to it. It just felt like a place that you wanted to be in and you wanted to play and be a part of. So
बढ़िया लग रही है भाई बहुत.
Felt really, really good. A lot of people probably want to know what is the shooting like, what is that experience.
बहुत टाइम खर्चना पड़ेगा इस गेम पर तभी चलेगी ढंग से.
मैं खर्चूंगा भाई इस पे.
You said it was nothing serious.
नवंबर में आएगी, खत्म करनी पड़ेगी 2 महीने में, नहीं तो कॉलेज आ जाएंगे उसके बाद.
So this
Mechanic.
This looks like is a nomad playthrough. So this is not content that I actually got to play because I picked the corpo path. And what's amazing is these three different sort of life choices. Everyone gets a different initial start to the game. Which again, like you think of the scale of an RPG that is this big, the fact that these origin stories are entirely unique for each player is like just baffles me. So the nomad playthrough, just so you know, the nomads are, you're kind of more of a lone wolf. You're kind of on the outskirts of the city. This place called the Badlands, and you're off the grid, right? You are
Push to start.
nomad, is the word means. So that's sort of what the playthrough was. The other option I did
Oh,
was the
yeah.
Street Kid. And you're sort of, as you would imagine, kind of like you've got cred, you've got connections, you're street smart, and you're kind of ambitious. You're kind of, you know, a little bit of a rebel, street kid. The nomad, nomad is a little more rogue, and corporate obviously is, you know, it's corporate. That's why I picked it. That's what the Twitter poll suggested. So those are 3 potential backstories that you have in the game, and your choice affects the beginning of the prologue, but it also has implications as you play through the game. So as I was playing through, there were certain dialogue choices that would pop up, and they would say, "Hey, this is the corpo dialogue option." So because I was a corpo, that allowed me to have that dialogue option. So that's something that as you play through, you'll find that everyone kind of has, you know, has a different experience with the game, which is pretty amazing and crazy. So again, this is stuff that I didn't get to play because I was nomad, but that sort of is like one of the nomad playthrough options, which is cool. And again, you can see here actually on the screen, it's like a nomad option. So this is again a mission that I didn't get to do, but the scale of the world really blew me away.
इसका बस यही दुख है यार, सिंगल प्लेयर है, अकेला अकेले खेलनी पड़ेगी बैठ के.
मल्टीप्लेयर भी निकालेंगे ये.
Again, I love how fresh it feels, and that may.
लेकिन भाई सिंगल प्लेयर भी बहुत अच्छी है, इतनी बुरी नहीं है.
बोर हो जाऊंगा यार, बता अकेले खेलते खेलते काफी टाइम तक.
नहीं होगा भाई. CD Projekt Red makes one of the best single player games.
And it's like, yeah, sure, it's slightly different.
Next time एक बार आए तो सही.
Not necessarily.
सितंबर में आने 2 महीने लेट हो गई.
भाई ग्राफिक्स क्या प्यारे लग रहे हैं यार.
मैं तो मर जाऊंगा भैया स्ट्रीम करते करते.
Different in terms of what it's like to play, and the world feels so fresh.
कैमरा स्विचिंग कितनी प्यारी है इसकी, स्मूथ देगी.
मैं तो एलगाटा उठा रहा हूं भैया बर्थडे में, बस खत्म बात. मैं एलगाटा लेगा तभी स्ट्रीम होगी ढंग से, नहीं तो ये ना हो रही.
The voice acting and the characters super compelling, and every character I met, you know, you were like, I want to know more about this character. I want to know their backstory. I want to understand more about them. It's not like, oh, here, you know.
क्या आग लगाती है उस पे?
There's a tier of characters which are
कुछ तो करा.
There's another tier which are just kind of like the NPCs. Like everything here feels so well designed. Now this is some kind of combat. So again, this is not a sequence that I played, but let me talk a bit about what the combat feels like. Because this is a first-person game, and you know, first-person RPG, right? So it's, you know, more in the vein of, you know, back in the day, like a System Shock or a Bioshock. What does it feel like? The gunplay to me felt good, but it's
वो डैमेज नहीं हुआ कूदने पे.
More methodic style of
फायर वैसे वाले लगा रखे हैं.
कितना गंदा स्प्रे है उसका.
Remember this game, Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay back in the day. It was a game that added normal mapping in on Xbox, and it was first person, but it was done kind of in a more deliberate style and methodic style of gameplay. And this obviously is more kind of, you know, heavily action oriented, but the gunplay is different.
अरे काट दिया.
Streaming technology
खोपड़ी निकाल दी.
PC, so I can't
Electric
fully
Mantis
judge
blade.
it, and I want to be honest with you guys about that. I didn't play it like, you know, on a PC, so it's hard to really judge the responsiveness. But it's definitely a more methodic style of gunplay than like a super fast-paced first-person shooter, and I didn't really mind it. It felt like it was. Different and a little more deliberate, but it was definitely something to sort of get used to.
Batmobile जैसी लगती है यार मेरे को तो इनकी गाड़ियाँ.
But it was very responsive. The combat sequences were really fun, and the combat also, there's hacking that's involved.
वो बहन चोद गाड़ी का दरवाजा कैसे खुला है ये?
भाई पूरी एनिमेशन देख.
There's stealth. It's not just balls to the wall action as you would kind of expect in it. This is a Street Kid.
गाड़ी का दरवाजा कैसे खुला था?
So again, this is something that
Roy Field. Royal Enfield.
Watching this as well. We'll get to the
Ray Field है.
a little bit. But you know the.
ओ एयरबैग का साइन भी भाई उस पे. स्टीयरिंग पे एयरबैग भी लिखा हुआ है.
Cool. This is Jackie, a character that is featured in all of the playthroughs, and he's kind of really with you in the prologue and sort of the first chapter of the game.
Never heard of thieves'
Jackie
honor.
is a super cool
Finders
guy.
keepers. I was first. Listen, only one or two
sort
ways
of
to do this.
Friendly, you grow to know him no matter what life path you choose, and he becomes sort of a trusted friend and partner to him, at least in the Corpo playthrough. But I think in the other playthroughs, you actually have like a different experience with him, which is cool. So all the players, as I understand, all the playthroughs are working with him, but your relationship with him is different based on which kind of playthrough that you have. And there are also some characters that I got to experience in my playthrough as Corpo, which are different. So like you saw in the Nomad playthrough, that sort of sheriff sort of like character, I don't even know his name because I didn't play as him. I think he may just be called Sheriff. But that's something that the Nomad playthrough you get that I didn't even get to experience. So that footage is kind of new to me. So again, completely different missions based on life paths, so you really sort of get 3 games here in one. And obviously they intersect at certain points, but you can do 3 unique playthroughs with different story content in them, which is just is kind of insane to me to see. I think everyone obviously gets the same core missions. The brain dance that we'll talk about when we get to footage of that was a really interesting experience, sort of playing through that. But again, everyone has sort of different parts. The prologue of the game is really sort of the first part that we got to play. As I said, the trailer and whatnot came from that prologue piece. And that is, I think everyone, I believe everyone has the same first mission in the prologue, which is the pickup. And that's basically Jackie and V, the character of Jackie, who I don't know if you've seen in the footage yet. But Jackie, you'll hear more about. Or actually, sorry, I talked about Jackie. Yeah, we showed Jackie. Sorry. So Jackie and V basically team up, and they're kind of together for the prologue. One thing is Keanu Reeves' character, Johnny Silverhand, I didn't even get to see or experience in what I got to play. It was really primarily like Jackie and V are kind of the team that kick things off. So Jackie and V basically start the game and go through a lot of the prologue together as sort of plans, and they're looking to kind of enter the mercenary world in Night City, and then Dexter Sean, who you guys saw I think last year in the E3 trailer, guy big smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. He works with them, and they kind of work together on this sort of initial heist. So that's sort of something that they need to kind of figure out and work together on. And that's really where sort of like things start out. Everyone has a bit of a different playthrough based on kind of who you are, but you make choices, and that's the thing is with this game, like there are multiple ways to go through things. There's side missions, like you would expect from a CD Projekt Red RPG. There are lots of choices that you get to make as you kind of play through. I did that mission, and then
ये वही है जहाँ पे जो बोली पड़ती निकलते हुए
a lot of gameplay was
brain dance
factory. It was very combat oriented that I'll get to talk about if we get to show some footage of that. But it's you can stealth through a factory, you can engage in combat, you can shoot your way out, you can go a bunch of different ways, but there are definitely some stealth things, and there's a pretty fun training mission. Here's Lizzie's bar, which you get to go to. This is something I did get to play as, and you get to chat with her, you can see some of the dialogue with her, but I mean the character design is like phenomenal. And it's not just, 3 of the characters are this cool, like literally every character you meet has an incredible just sort of sense of style and fashion, and like the world is so rich and cool, and really well done. I thought the acting was engaging, the characters are just blended into the world, it's not cutscene oriented, everything is sort of happening, and this is the brain dance that we're going to talk about. So you saw, actually, this is the footage that we saw in Night City Wire with the brain dance. So this is a really interesting type of gameplay, and it takes a while to get used to. It's like sort of the investigation mode in a Batman game, but even more in depth. So it's kind of like a video editor, right? I do a lot of video editing, and it reminds me of video editing, in that you have the editor and then you scrub through, right? So there's a timeline, but there's multiple layers. So there's like a visual layer, there's an audio layer, and then there's, I don't know if it's active yet, but there's a thermal layer that also comes in. And basically what you can do is you can scrub through these scenes, in this kind of heist sequence you'll see, and you can move the camera around, and the brain dance allows you to basically see and scan things in different ways. So across those 3 layers, so you can basically rewind and fast forward through sequences. You can pick which layer you want to sort of figure out a clue, and then you can zoom in on things.
That'll take you right back to the beginning.
Sorry, I gotta take a swig of water. You can zoom in on things, and then basically analyze them to get additional clues. So there were 2 brain dance sequences that I got to check out in the game. This is one of the first ones, and it's a different type of gameplay, right? It really is like investigation and discovery across multiple layers. And right now, as I played it, it's a little challenging sometimes because you definitely are hunting. You're kind of pixel hunting in a way to sort of try and figure out things. And you'll know that you have to go to the thermal layer, right? And you're like searching for an object or a clue, like in one of the other brain dance sequence, you're looking for this kind of chip or clue somewhere in the world, and you it's in the thermal layer. They'll tell you that. But you kind of have to like watch the sequence, and sometimes the camera in this. It can only be sort of around the characters in terms of how the brain dance works. So you can't necessarily scan the entire environment. So as these characters move, you'll sort of go out of signal or range. And this is the audio layer here, right? So you can see that there's some audio clues that are highlighted. You can kind of zoom into those. And this is kind of how you discover things in the game. In terms of story beats and obviously investigation beats. So very different, right, than like gunplay or driving around. But this kind of, you can see he'll pull a gun on the guy here in the store, and it's this is something where you can kind of move around, right next to see the sequence from multiple different ways. And again, I'd never seen this before from the game. It was sort of a very different kind of approach to how you do a kind of an investigation mode. And I don't know how much of it is going to be in the game. It feels though like it's going to be a pretty significant part of the experience, going back to using sort of these brain dances that you get to kind of continue to experience. So certainly like a new kind of feature. And that's an addition, obviously, to all like the hacking stuff, which is kind of a big part of it as well. That you go through kind of hacking tutorials earlier on in the game, and I got to play through that, which is again kind of like a different, what you would expect in this, right? But I think the brain dance thing was something different. So brain dance, as they sort of said, is the most popular form of entertainment in the world, and it's sort of kind of, I think, came out of kind of a porn background. But allows you to basically replay memories, right? And I mean, part of this game is about genetic modification and technology, so makes sense for this to sort of be a part of it. But it's basically the commercial production of memories. So as you can imagine, this brain dance editing suite is the way you're going to sort of like.
Oh भाई कितनी बढ़िया गेम लग रही है यार ये लॉन्च होते खेलेंगे
so you kind of become an investigator.
क्या बढ़िया गेम लग रही है भैया लॉन्च होते खेलेंगे तो
तभी तो प्री ऑर्डर करी है मैंने
अबे चल डाले घंटा प्री ऑर्डर करी है तूने मिल गई तेरे को
नहीं भाई मैंने प्री ऑर्डर ही करी है पैसे मैंने दिए हैं
हाँ तो लेकिन तूने नहीं करी ना प्री ऑर्डर तूने तो पैसे किसी और चीज में लगाए थे अब वो नहीं हुआ तो तेरे को गेम मिल गई
This was in Act 1, so it was a little bit further past the initial prologue stuff that I got to play through after this big all foods combat sequence that I got to play out. So again, you come out of this, this is Lizzie's bar, we sort of go into these brain dances, and that was, again, a pretty cool new feature that we got to check out in Cyberpunk as well. All right, so we're back to the Nomad playthrough. I should have played as Nomad because so much of this footage comes from Nomad, but there's going to be some Corpo stuff, I know it. As you can see here, tons of dialogue options for you and Jackie going through. And again, the characters and the look and feel of it. It's a really rich, beautiful world. It's only going to look better on the new consoles and next gen. So I think it's so smart of them to bring this out kind of alongside the new consoles. Because typically with launch games, you get games that are kind of not rushed, but sort of limited in scope for launch. I mean, this is probably one of the most ambitious games
ओ भाई क्या गाड़ी घुमाई है
decade that is going to be coming out right alongside these new consoles. Hopefully, I know everyone's like skittish now on CD Projekt Red finishing it.
बहुत धीरे-धीरे चल रही है, अरे भगा नहीं रहा.
Overall, it was pretty polished what I got.
लग रहा भगा नहीं रहा.
It felt really good. I mean, look at these, action sequences, right? I mean, this is stuff right out of big action games.
पट्टा ऐसे चल रहा भाई. मुंह क्या रीलोड कर रहा है.
Action sequences.
मर क्यों नहीं रहा बहनचोद? ओ हेडशॉट. गाड़ी फटने को हो रही है उसकी. ओ हेडशॉट. फट गई बहन.
अच्छा लग रहा.
Of my character, but the amount of
उनके सामने कैसे रिलोड कर रहा हूं उनके. शर्म भी नहीं आ रही सालों को. गोली नहीं लग रही उनको इसकी.
तभी थी वो उनको एनपीसी बोलते हैं.
Hacking was another thing that's really interesting.
इस बंदे का एम भी इतना रिप है.
नाचे जा रहा है इधर से उधर. अबे कंट्रोलर पे है ना. माउस पे तो माउस कीबोर्ड पे फिर भी एक बार कर ले. है भी तो बेचारा कंट्रोलर. Welcome to the stream. Bye. Welcome to the stream.
In one sequence, you can hack a monitor that will then distract the guards, and it'll kind of fritz out. And then when that happens, goes to the hack of the person, and then you basically, they get distracted, and then you can go in and sort of, take them down. So definitely lots of hacking you can do of kind of objects and items in the world and environment.
The
other thing is the world has a lot of emergent gameplay in it. In terms of characters reacting to what's happening in the world. That was something that was really, really compelling to me, is just to feel like I could kind of make choices and I could steal someone's basketball, or I could, even just like watch a TV show. Like there was this talk show, one part of my playthrough, I think it was called Night After Night, and it was just like running on a TV monitor and something just to watch, and other characters react to you watching it. It's the kind of stuff that you expect, honestly, from like a Rockstar game in terms of the depth and complexity of the world and the density. I think that's one word that I would probably use a lot when talking about Cyberpunk. It's just like an incredible density to the world and the experience as you play through it. It just felt like, again,
गोली निकाल दोनों का सर खोल दे. हो गया खत्म. जीत गया.
Story, and the entire world felt really lived in, right? I mean, sometimes there are open world games where it's like there's kind of a core path, and then
यही तो कंट्रोलर से खेला जाएगा. ये बॉक्सिंग वाला जो पोर्शन होता है ये तो कंट्रोलर से खेला जाएगा.
Fleshed out, and this game, it's like everything.
ओए होए.
I mean, the amount of art that went into it and the character design just like blows me away. Like it's literally a game where I would want to walk down every block and go into, every store and meet every character, because there's just so much going on in it. And that's a pretty cool feeling to have when you first start playing a game. And you don't want to necessarily just force yourself down
अरे भाई ये गाड़ी बढ़िया है.
Like Johnny, you don't even
Quadra लिखा है.
Turbo R.
Right? So it was really kind of a story about
नंबर प्लेट भी दे डिजिटल. नंबर प्लेट भी दे डिजिटल है. अरे कौन है?
my playthrough.
लो भाई आवाज नहीं आ रही क्या तुम्हें?
आ रही है.
तो बोल क्यों नहीं रहा भाई?
And he said that Keanu's character, Johnny, has the second most lines of dialogue in the entire game to me, and I didn't even get to meet him in the first 4 hours. So, that's kind of like, an insane
भाई तुम्हें आवाज आ रही है कि नहीं आ रही?
So here's Jack.
कम आ रही है.
And again, look at how the characters
अब ठीक आ रही है कि अभी भी कम आ रही है?
सही है.
क्या देख रहे हो तुम लोग?
It's really well placed
Cyberpunk.
and scripted in a way that you don't feel like they're kind of going into story mode and pulling out of it. It all is very seamlessly.
लाइव भी कर रहा हूँ. तेरे को भी लिंक दे ही देता हूँ. लिंक ले ले.
The animation to the voiceover, it really is like it's super smooth, and the NPCs, they're not just standing there, right? They're kind of like sitting on the stairs, and like it's just that just oozes with ambiance to me, and just makes the world feel lived in, which I think is a really unique and cool aspect to this game, which everyone is, really excited about. Some other aspects of sort of the game as we sort of play through this again. This is not necessarily my playthrough. This is just a look at sort of a sequence from the game, and we're entering sort of afterlife here, as you can see. A few other things that I'll sort of talk about. Sort of your attributes of your character. These are just some notes I took. You have, in terms of building out your character, you can spread your points across 5 core stats when you sort of first set up your character. And it's your body, reflex, intelligence, technical ability, and your sort of cool, your self-control. So those are kind of each attribute, and they have their own perks. And you can have perk points to sort of level up. And again, I got to about level 5. I did get level 5 in my playthrough. Is kind of where things ultimately kind of ended up for me. But again, everyone has a different play style. I played a little more brute force, more action oriented. There was a little bit of stealth. Sorry, Mr. Kojima, but I was a little more action oriented on this one. But it was really fun. And again, look at this like Afterlife Club. Look at the characters and look at how it how well placed.
भाई कितनी बढ़िया बना रखी है गेम उन्होंने मॉडलिंग पे टेक्सचरिंग पे उसकी लाइटिंग
talk about the next generation of games.
कितना ज़्यादा look and feel गेम का कितना बढ़िया बना रखा है.
It's about like raw graphic power, but it's also just the density of the experience, to me at least.
गजब यार बहुत ही बढ़िया.
That it really feels alive, and this world to me feels live. Like look at just the animations in the background, the characters, and the screens, and the
हर एक डिटेल पे ध्यान है भाई, हर एक डिटेल पे. जो चीज फोकस में नहीं है वो भी इतनी बढ़िया तरीके से बनी.
No, this is actually like the game and the experience. Look at these characters, how they talk to you, and it's just like phenomenal. And this is the kind of game that I think is going to become
बहुत मेहनत करी है इन लोगों ने बनाने में, बहुत ज़्यादा मेहनत.
Down the road,
ऐसे ही 6 साल 7 साल नहीं हुए इस गेम के बारे में.
Multiplayer and experiential around all this stuff, like the world of Cyberpunk. I think.
मैं तो सोच रहा हूँ जब लॉन्च होगी तब मैं स्ट्रीम कैसे करेगा, मेरा लैपटॉप इतना बाहर नहीं सह पाएगा इसका, मर जाएगा मेरा लैपटॉप.
You can hear some of the dialogue here, and again, I'm sure people are complaining in chat that oh, it's chatting over it. We just want to hear it. But it's I'm sure there's lots of people posting this footage on their own. It's not I'm not the only person that has it. But it's really, again, cool to see. Look at this, like even interactions, right? You can take a drink, talk to these guys, and everyone reacts in just such a realistic way. I'm kind of honestly blown away by the scope of it, and also a little scared that it feels so involved and intense that I have no idea when they're going to be able to actually finish this thing. But they say they're on track for later this year. But again, like the scale of this world and the way it looks, what next-gen game is going to have this level of detail to it? And again, the graphics are going to be amped up. I assume this is PC footage. I mean, this looks very similar to what I played, but again, I played over the NVIDIA GeForce Now is what we used for kind of the playthrough, where they streamed it to my PC since we can't go anywhere physically. So it was a little hard to judge like the full graphic fidelity of it, but there's Lizzie's bar that we actually saw where you go in there for the brain dance. But I love that they've just been so raw and real, just kind of like releasing a bunch of gameplay footage to us to just kind of check out. And again,
सब कुछ डिजिटल, सब जगह पे स्क्रीन है और वो सब है.
Your feet, I feel like now you're getting a better
क्या ऐसा दरवाजा
what
खुला
it
है?
likes to, what it's like to play this game. So even here, like you can go, grab that guy's ball and throw it out, and all this is like, this is your choice in your play style, right? These are not just like cutscenes that you're kind of watching. Everything is kind of built within the game environment. And again, the scale and scope of the world, it feels so fresh. And I gotta say, the whole technology angle for an RPG, like first person, like this is exciting to me. This is not, not traditional swords and sorcery. I mean, this is really like, it's GTA meets Blade Runner meets a little bit of Skyrim. I mean, it's got all those pieces in there, but it just feels like a fresh new world, which is, we don't get that often. Something this kind of detailed and realistic. So again, heading in here, and this is actually a Corpo playthrough. So this is kind of basically what I actually got to experience. You go and meet with Jackie here, and you go down to the table and kind of meet with him and chat with him. And again, look at another environment here, right? Where it's like you just want to like just hang out, like talk to different characters, because it looks so good and feels so alive. So you go here, sit down with Jackie. You guys will, have a little chat here. And again, just listen to some of this dialogue. Like, it's just so good.
It's good to see you too, Jack. How you been?
Yeah, well, that's all we get. But it's just like even the way he interacts with you, grabs your hand, like it's stuff that really sort of gets everyone hyped
भाई
up.
क्या
So I
एनिमेशन,
guess
क्या रिगिंग,
I guess
क्या
that's the end of
मॉडलिंग,
the
क्या
footage, guys.
टेक्सचरिंग,
Or
क्या
feedback to me.
लाइटिंग, भाई साहब
So
बहुत ही
what else do I
बढ़िया
want to tell
यार,
you about it?
बहुत ही
I
बढ़िया.
think you got a good sense of from how it plays with the different play styles. I will say, kind of like to sum up overall, the world absolutely blown away by the scale and scope of the world, the density of the experience. It feels like there's a lot there. I think the open question marks I still have are. I think it's really getting a sense of that combat and how that plays. And again, it's so hard over streaming to really judge it. I had a ton of fun. But the first-person shooter genre, it's such a tight loop of how those things play and control. I also didn't get to play on mouse and keyboard. They made all of us play on controllers. So even though I played on PC, I played it with an Xbox controller. So I'm curious how it plays on mouse and keyboard. But that's the one thing I'm kind of like the feel of the shooting. I really need to understand as I get more weapons. How does it feel? What's the responsiveness of it? And again, this is not Doom. It's more strategic. There's hacking. There's stealth. There are a whole bunch of different elements to it. Which are really fun. But I think that's the one thing I'm kind of curious about. The driving felt pretty good to me. But again, it's a little hard until I really play it like
बताओ भाई,
once to sort
कमेंट
of get a sense
चैट
of
में
how that
लिखो,
feels.
कमेंट्स में बताना मेरे को.
Yeah, I mean,
स्ट्रीमी कमेंट्स
jack
में
a
लिखो.
car, drive
अब
somewhere,
मैंने थोड़ी देर
go
पहले
missing.
स्ट्रीम
Like
खत्म कर
these
दी,
are all the
उस
things you
पे
expect
जितने
from
ज्यादा लोग लाइक करेंगे उससे मुझे
an
पता चलेगा
RPG. But
कि हाँ
I
लोगों को
can
मेरा
tell
कंटेंट
there's
पसंद आ रहा है.
already
और
so
साइबर
much
पंक के लिए मेरे को
content in
जरूर
it.
बताना
And even though I
कि
play
मैं
4
साइबर
hours, I'm
पंक
like, God, I want to do the other play
खेलूं.
styles. I want to do
कि
Nomad. I
आपके
want to
क्या
do
रिव्यूज है
Triton
साइबर
to
पंक
see
पे,
how
आपको कैसी
different
लग
things
रही
are.
है, अच्छी लग रही है, बेकार लग रही है,
It's
ऐसी
the
मैं
scale of it
इंटरेस्टेड
just
होगी नहीं,
absolutely
क्योंकि
blows
मैं
me
बहुत
away.
एक्साइटेड हूँ
Let
साइबर
me
पंक.
see out of my notes here before we go here if there's
जितना अभी
anything
तक देखा
else
उसके बारे में,
that I should
जितना अभी तक
talk
उसका
to you
गेम
about.
प्ले
I
देखा,
talked about the
ग्राफिक्स
play
देखा,
style.
बहुत ही ज्यादा बढ़िया गेम लगा.
Talked a bit
बहुत
about the
एंगेजिंग
world,
गेम
the
है, कोई
city, sort
बोरिंग
of
वाली
things
गेम.
that we got to see. Again, I
खेल
didn't
के
want to get
बाकी
through
तो
much
खेल के पता
content
चलेगा,
as
बाकी
I
अभी तक
could,
देखने तो
so I
बहुत
didn't
ही
get
बढ़िया
to do
गेम
a
लगा.
ton of extra exploring around the world, but definitely sort of wanted to check things out. But my path as a corpo, you start in Arasaka Tower, which is this kind of corporate tower, obviously. Megacorp life is sort of what I sort of saw. So it was kind of this office space. That's where it started for me. And then Lizzie's Bar, as you saw in the playthrough, that's definitely a place where I went and I kind of, met Jackie, as you saw. And that was something that kind of led into, obviously, some combat and then some excitement, but did not go through, the other paths. So the sheriff sequence that you saw, did not get to see that myself. But everyone got to meet, I think, Dex, which again is a super cool character, and you'll get to see more of him. And then you also you saw some footage there of Judy, which is really, really cool. She's kind of acquainted with this other lady, Evelyn, who she contracts Dex to steal the relic, and that's kind of starts things up. And she provides V's crew with info on the heist, and it's a brain dance recording, which I don't think we saw in that footage, but I got to play. And the brain dance recording is in the penthouse of Arasaka's place, and that's where this relic that you're going to steal is hidden. And she sort of this brain dance recording of Arasaka and this girl, you sort of get access to that and you kind of figure out where the relic is in the room. And then I didn't get to play through this because that's the end of my PlayStation, but I assume then you kind of go in and since you know where the relic is, that's where you go steal it. So Evelyn is the character that kind of contracts Dex and you to go steal this relic. And then Judy, who you saw there, who's tied up with sort of the purple and blue hair, she's the one that is the brain dance expert and sort of takes you into that brain dance. And she's sort of helping you prepare for this heist. So again, it's like a GTA heist. It's sort of like all the planning of like, oh, you've got the brain dance recording, and then you're going to figure out where you need to go. Once you figure that out, then you go into the heist and you put together your crew and everything like that. So really, really kind of cool to see how this is all going to play out. And, how this is going to cascade through the gameplay, I think is going to be like absolutely phenomenal. So that was kind of the experience I had, sort of playing through the game, and I had a really good time. I think the weapons were tons of fun as well. Got a really cool sort of electro shotgun that I got to use. You know, loot bodies. You have these inhalers that you can use to get your health back. So you can kind of up on the D-pad to sort of take an inhaler, get your health back up. Again, I was a little more brute force in my playthrough, died a few times because of that, but you certainly can be stealthier and hack driven, which was really, really cool. And yeah, I really had a great time. I'm curious to see how the battles scale up. We saw some big action sequences like in cars and chases, but I'm curious as you get later in the game, sort of how things work with multiple characters. And especially when, you know, Jackie was in some of the kind of firefights with me. And I'm curious, like, as more characters, as the crew expands in scale, there are more enemies, more scale. I think that's the big question I have, is sort of how does the larger scale combat play out as you get deeper into the game? And it's not necessarily, I'm not worried about it. I'm just really curious how that's going to play out as you go through more and more of the game. And hacking is something I also wanted to do more of. I found myself doing a little bit of it, but I felt like I could have done more hacking and learned more about sort of the different hacks. And there's sort of these letter number combinations that you have to go through, kind of a mini game to figure out hacks. And there's sort of this matrix, which I don't think we saw in the footage, but there's like a matrix of letters and numbers, and you have to quickly kind of move through it to sort of hack things, which is cool. So again, I did a little bit of hacking, but probably not as much as I wanted to inside of the game. But overall, as a hands-on experience, the game is real, right? You know, it looks amazing. It plays really good. The scale of the world is phenomenal. And thank you to the CD Projekt Red guys for not just giving us like, here's your one mission within, you know, you're just going to the food mart and you get to play combat for 10 minutes and that's all you get to do. These guys were like, no, we're going to give you 4 hours of gameplay. Press start, do what you want to do. And I think that was a really powerful way to show that this game is real. It's not sort of protected and not going to be finished for years because they're only doing one part. But I shudder to think about the scale of it. It's sort of like when I play a Red Dead game or a GTA game where you're like, wow, I just think there's going to be so much content here. So this is like the real deal. And it's probably one of the most ambitious and freshest games that I've played in a long time. And I'm really, really excited about it. So to all the CD Projekt Red guys who are probably watching this back in Poland.
एक ही link दिया है वो देख IGN की देख IGN की.
So far.
कहाँ पे दिया link?
And again, like incredible world, characters, story, gameplay. I feel it's all there. I miss the game.
Will be reflected in your choices. You actually have access to different choices, different options than other players, and that is also reflected in your choices and your options inside the scenes, but it will also open you branches in the quests, and some quests are completely closed off from another life paths. So basically this is a place for you to just replay the game more times. And as a player, you can actually as a player, you can actually like sort of continue, you know, this role play and being like, okay, I'm a nomad, you know, and like get to meet nomads, got to go outside Night City, you know, like travel in convoy with cars and motorcycles with other nomads, become the part of their family and actually finish the game in that way, right? This is one of the bigger, I would say, side quest storylines we have in the game. And as a player, you really don't have to do that, but you can, right? And that opens you up as another endings and other possibilities. So as a player, you can really take your life path, your origin, and really like role play like this. But if your choice is to actually switch to something else and like, you know, start acting like a corp or like a street kid, or, you know, everything in between, that's also an open possibility for you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, we've seen that CD Projekt Red isn't afraid to hide certain portions of the game. Obviously, a choice you made halfway through The Witcher 2 would pretty much lock you off from one entire half of the game. And this seems like a similar thing here. I guess I'm curious, how much does character customization, how much does player choice affect sort of the outcome of the game? Like, I'm not asking you to spoil anything, but can you talk a bit about how varied the endings are, how open that experience can be?
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a cool question. Well, I mean, so we have taken lots of the things that we have learned from The Witcher 3, and we have taken this, you know, as a teachings, you know, and used that and updated that and expanded and just basically learned that, use that as a foundation to build Cyberpunk quest structure and the whole story structure. And as a player, you have this like main core storyline that you can follow, but then, you know, on the side of that, you have that additional storylines. Those quests actually alter the main storyline in a really meaningful way. You can actually have completely different endings if you did the side quest or not. So it's really up to you as a player, and some options won't be even available if you didn't do it, because you simply don't know that characters, or you don't know about that possibility that just opens up. So it's really up to the player, you know, to look for it. Now, when it comes to the number of endings, I mean, we have tried to go way higher than with Witcher 3, and like you can divide
वाले
those
इतनी भी कितनी
differences
endings
into
लगा
like
देंगे,
major
पागल हो जाएंगे
differences,
लोग.
and there's, let's say, few more than in The Witcher, but then in between, in like the boundaries of that different endings, you can actually have different variations, and that those variations are actually decorated on top of that additionally with like smaller choices that the player has been making, and that all together like just gives you this like actual ending, your own ending, you know, the way you would actually play the game, the way you see yourself in Night City, the way you decide you would like to be, you know, in a reference in relation to the characters that you have met.
That's kind of what I was expecting to hear. It seems like very much everything is scaled up here. Now you mentioned convoy stuff, and obviously being a nomad has a lot. Obviously, Cyberpunk has a lot of driving involved. I'm curious, how does vehicle ownership work? I'm used to sort of being able to whistle and Roach walks out from a bar or onto a roof. And it's, are we able to steal any car we see on the street? Do we have a garage? I guess talk about sort of vehicles a little bit, please.
Oh wow, okay, I love that topic. So there's actually lots of different options that you can do. So as a player, when you build your character in a specific way, you can actually start stealing cars, and you can just throw off people, you know, from the cars. I'm just laughing because I love doing this in the game, that I just approach somebody like and throw him under the wheels of another car that's just driving by. So you can do that if you want to, but so you can steal different vehicles, and really in the game you can steal everything that has wheels pretty much, and just drive around with it. But then in the same time, as a player, you own your own garage. The garage is actually something that is like with your flat in the mega building that V owns, that small space. And then throughout the quests and throughout the game, you can actually, in open world, you can obtain different cars, different motorcycles, but also doing quests, you're rewarded with completely different vehicles. And our vehicle team did like amazing job to just like flesh out those cars in a really interesting way. I just love the interiors of that cars, you know, and they look completely different. There's lots of different models that you can own as a player, and you can buy them or you can just get them. And there's also like lots of different cars that you can steal and drive around. Now, nomads, though, they are a yet another, like I would say, specific group or layer, you know, in the social structure of Cyberpunk, because they augment their cars. They actually update their cars to be able to survive on the Badlands. So the cars that they have additional type of graffitis. They have special like augments and add-ons on the top of the car. So you may actually see, like, for instance, Quadra Type 66 that we have shown at some point, you know, this yellow car, but then you can see that there is a version called the Reaver, you know, the one that we have shown recently on Twitter, the one that is actually updated by the Raids gang that lives between nomads on Badlands. And you can see that this car is completely different, because those guys just took like the same frame and just reworked it completely. And this is the cars that you can also own as a player and steal and drive around with them.
Would you say that the amount of customization we've seen available to the player for just creating a character extends to other stuff like weaponry and cars and living spaces?
So as a player, you are able to customize everything that is pretty much around your character. So you can customize weapons that you're getting, and I'm talking here both visuals and functional part. You can update all the cyberware, pretty much everything that you can actually wear. We have pushed like really ourselves to the limit to just give the player a lot of different options. And we have looked both into like visual and functional way of doing this.
बावले हो जाएंगे लोग.
When it comes to the vehicles, as a player, you can own different vehicles, but you do not really customize them. What you do, you actually own
क्या करेगा एक बंदा?
that have been already customized, and you can find different vehicles that have been already tuned up, but you do not do it yourself. When it comes to the flat, V owns an apartment in a mega building. This is the one that you may have seen in the demo that we have shown in 2018. It's still available on YouTube. So it has been slightly updated because we've been working, of course, on the graphics of the game a lot. So it looks, I would say, slightly differently. But this is a space that V owns, and there's a small, I would say, customization planned regarding this. But V is not she's a mercenary, right? Or he is a mercenary living on the streets. Like, we do not really see V like decorating interiors and whatnot. However, of course, some small some small options to reflect your personality, your build are there in the game.
Right. It's not Animal Crossing. Okay. So we got the ESRB ratings, which talked a bit about customizable genitalia. Obviously, The Witcher was a very mature, adult-oriented game. Can you speak a little bit about romance options? Geralt had a sort of canonical existing romances, but V is totally a blank slate. How are you approaching romance differently in Cyberpunk versus The Witcher?
So when it comes to romances, we actually look at it from a bit different perspective. So as you mentioned, Geralt was a defined character, right? So he had a specific traits. There were females that were interested in him and he was interested in them. That was pretty much it, right? When it comes to Cyberpunk, we approach it from the perspective of player building his own character and finding his own way in a night city. And that the night city is really inhabited by lots of different people that have their own preferences. And that was something very important for us. We just really wanted to make sure that those people that live in a night city, they're real. So what we did, we looked into the characters and built them in a way that they can have a friendly or a romance relationship with V, depending on these choices, but they won't always fall for you. If you say if you're an asshole or if you don't fit for them, or if your build, your personality, your gender, your genitalia, if it doesn't work for them, they won't fall for you. This is how it works. It's sort of as a real life, and they just won't go for anything. And what we really have put a lot of emphasis on their personalities in the way they exist in a night city. So the way they are. And when you will be actually developing the relationships with them, you will go through the whole chains of quests. When you get to know them better, understand them better, you will see, what kind of dilemmas, I would say, they have in their lives. And then, depending how you act, they will, react to what you have decided. And that may lead to the friendship or really a romantic relationship. And that, customized genitalia may come into place, can come into play eventually.
Wonderful. So one last question. This is on the console side of things, this is sort of spanning the gap between console generations, but at the same time, you're clearly targeting, PC gamers as well. Can you speak a little bit about sort of what sort of next-gen types of features PC players can expect, and conversely, are the demos that have been shown off sort of reflective of what people should be expecting from the next-gen builds of the game?
Okay, so there's a bunch of things actually. So I think I could start probably from the graphics of the game, and this is probably the most visible thing that we can talk about. We have announced some time ago that we are working on RTX. Specifically, I'm specifically talking here about global illumination and ray tracing, and this is something that we're working on a lot, and the game really looks amazing with ray tracing enabled. And this will be, of course, available for the players at the release of the game. But there is also other things that the sort of a next gen or high-end PCs brought into play, and of course things like fast hard drives, things like things like resolution and textures and memory usage and so on. And of course, we're looking very closely and optimizing right now the FPS. Right, we really try to make sure that the game runs as smooth as possible. And at this stage of the production, we are at the moment when we are like optimizing the most and putting lots of work into like finding ways, how to make Night City run really smoothly, because the city itself is gigantic. It has lots of layers, there's lots of different NPCs, like the texture budget is just insane, so there's lots of like tricks, and our like technical magicians are doing their best really to just pull it off in a best possible way. So I think those are the spaces that we're looking at, to just make sure that the Cyberpunk feels the best. But what I wanted to assure the players is the fact that when it comes to content, like for us, when player buys the game, it's always the same game, right? No matter of the platform, no matter of your build, no matter of like your technical build, no matter what machine you own, it's really the same game. And I think when you look at The Witcher 3, you can actually see it, that when we have packed Witcher 3 on that small on the Switch, right? There's lots of work put into it, but there was no content actually that was removed from the game. It's actually a gigantic, rich game. And this is exactly the same philosophy that we're using when building Cyberpunk. We want to give the player exactly the same content. It's just that the tech that you own, the machine you own, will just make it probably work better, maybe will look a bit better, but it's still the same game. It will be still really rich, like Cyberpunk experience.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I am dying to get my hands on Cyberpunk 2077 and dying to ask you lots of questions after I actually get to play the game. Pavel, thank you so much for coming by. Cyberpunk 2077 is out on November 19th on PC, Xbox One, Series X, PS4, PS5, Stadia at a later date?
That's
Nintendo
correct.
Switch someday? Who knows? I don't know. You'll probably port it to phones or something. Anyway, thank you so much, Pavel. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say we're all dying to play Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm just dying to find out what you think about the game.
You don't come here often, do ya? It's good to see you, cabron. Now sit down and tell me what's got your shorts in a knot.
गेम बहुत बढ़िया भाई है. Very promising.
Well, that's about all the time we have to talk about what we expect from Cyberpunk 2077. I'm only kidding. We actually have 4 months and 25 more days to talk about that. And then the game comes out.
अभी भी देख रहा है गोरा.
And then actually talk about the game. That being said, we are tapping out for right now.
अभी भी देख रहा है.
Paris, thank you so much for joining us along with Brandon and Tina. It was really fun to actually just chat about the game with people who've actually played the game. Paris, where can people find you?
You can find me at Gamertag Radio, and you can obviously find me on Twitter, where there has links to my YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, everything at Vicious696. And thank you very much for having me on today.
It was a pleasure, and of course you can find me, Miranda, and Tina on
चल
IGN
भाई
all the time.
मैं जा रहा हूँ सो ले.
Lots more